So I was trying to decide if I was gonna do a video or just kind of post this, but I decided to go ahead and make a little video today. I hate being on social media, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So listen, I'm not on social media a lot, but for whatever reason, on there today and saw like all these videos and posts about stuff that was happening on New Year's. Um, and a couple of other things. And truth be told is, just not just from New Year's, but things that I have been seeing in the last year, my heart grieves. And my heart grieves because of all of the infighting that I have been seeing going on in the church that the world actually gets to witness. It's so disheartening. It's like we we understand, there's a lot that's going on, and we understand that it's not sitting well with God. Um, but it's disheartening to witness how we as a whole are handling all of these things. Excuse me. We have people who are kind of like posting about how they're watchmen and they're intercessors, and that's great because you are, right? So you're called to be watchmen, you're called to be intercessors. And the truth is that while you're called to be watchmen and intercessors, and yes, things are exposed to you, the question is, how are you supposed to be dealing with a lot of these issues? Because while you believe that you're called in this hour to expose the truth, okay, um, what are you supposed to do with that? How are you supposed to do that? Are we supposed to be carrying ourselves in the same manner as the rest of the world, being no different than the same people that we call ourselves calling to the carpet? The world has this way of kind of handling confrontation. The world has a way of kind of dealing with things that we don't agree with, right? And we do it, and the world does it in a way where it's constant mudslinging, or dragging people's names through the mud. And that's their way of kind of exposing each other for the whole world to see. It's like, dragging someone out and putting them like on a podium, and then literally just snatching everything off of them, exposing their nakedness. And, you know, exposing someone's nakedness is actually very ungodly. That's why they stripped Jesus. That's why when you look at what happened to, you know, fathers in biblical times, you were never supposed to look upon someone's nakedness. Um, you know, but this is what we do, right? We think that now what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to strip everyone to their nakedness in the eyes of the public. And I don't understand how we think that that's supposed to be godly. Um, you know, what we're supposed to do, well, let's go back. It's like when the world does it, right? Um they have no intention of leading anyone back to the cross. It's really just for true exposure. It's to just embarrass. It is to defame. It is to tear down. It is to crush. Um, it is to dehumanize someone. It is to shame who that person is. And nowadays we would say like, hey, it's like a crab in a barrel type of mentality, right? To where, excuse me, it's to where you are doing whatever you can to pull someone else down. And by, you pulling someone else down, you're using that to leverage yourself up, right? So whatever they're doing, you're pulling them down and you're, climbing on their backs so that you can get higher. And that's really what we're doing. Because in that scenario, there is no light. There is no light. Well, we can kind of argue and say, there is light, and the light that exists is the light that we're trying to make sure that we're trying to stand in rather than trying to be the example of. So when we are acting in this manner, how can we really expect people to come to Christ? How can we expect people to come to Christ? And by coming to Christ, meaning coming to Christ in truth. If we are not true and living examples of what it means to embody his spirit. And that means speaking and acting in wisdom, because that's who he is, right? He's wisdom and he's love. And that doesn't mean that there is no correction, but there is wisdom in how we correct. There is love in how we correct. But if you are placing someone in a manner to where you are just exposing their nakedness and embarrassing and tearing down and crushing, then there is no love, because even as a watchman, you tear down to build up. But there is no building up. From what I see, there's no building up. There's just a constant crushing. There's the constant yelling. There's the constant screaming. There's the constant defaming. There's a constant tearing down. And there is no love in that whatsoever. I was reading something and it talks about how we live by what we perceive and how we move by who we are, right? For example, with God gives love because he is love, right? So he's able to give because of who he is, not because of what he has. It's because of who he is. So by this notion, then we expel out of our mouths and we expel out of our actions and deal with conflict and deal with things based on who we are and what we carry. So in essence, all the things that we have been lashing out online, calling out, cutting constantly, that in essence is speaks to who and what we embody. And I don't know, I beg to question what that is. We've been seeing a lot of things where people have been talking about, well, God draws a line in the sand. Yes, he does. He draws a line in the sand. Okay, great. We'll go with that. Now, where exactly are you standing in that line, though? Because we need to make sure that we're not taking a humanistic approach to what we're saying. Because we need to shut down this whole like us versus them type mentality as if we're some type of hillbilly gang, because we're not a gang. And this is that old religion type mentality of, if you're not on my side, then you're on the other side. Because the truth of the matter is, I don't need to be on your side. What I need to be is on the side of the Lord. And if you are not acting according to or demonstrating what it means to be the embodiment of Christ, then yeah, I don't really want nothing to do with you. I don't. It would make me turn away from that all the way around. Yeah, We don't want nothing to do with that. This this whole nonsense, this whole excuse me, this whole nonsense that we see with this, I don't know, this, how do you say it? Where we see the vulgarity of so-called, and I said it, so-called followers of Christ pointing fingers and taking jabs like Sadducees and Pharisees of old is tired. I mean, have we not learned anything from our past? I would say obviously not. That's the reason that we're in the time and season that we're in. We blame it on the world, but if we are not doing things to change it, then we are just as guilty as everybody else because, you know, we're supposed to be doing something different. And so if things are the way that they are, we have to look at the part that we're playing that is causing things to remain the same or to get worse. Just food for thought. Because if we have a brother, right? If we have a brother in Christ that is falling, why are we not picking up the phone rather than, I don't know, reposting everything that they have done on social media and calling them out? And I can tell you why. It's because we're fighting like the world, right? We are basically doing the mudslinging type stuff that politicians do, who kind of like yell and scream, telling you that you're on the wrong side. And again, very much a humanistic point of view. So if you're a watchman, you know, then you see. You hear. And that means you see what's coming, you hear what's coming. And so when we look at many of our evangelist brothers and sisters, you know, you guys run in the same circles. You do. You run in the same circles. And if you don't know someone, you know somebody that knows somebody, right? So you run in the same circles because, you know, I always say it's like the church world is much like the military world. It's big, but it's small. You know somebody that knows somebody. But what we much rather do instead of making a phone call is we go online. And what we want is we want all of our followers to kind of like jump on, listen, and follow suit, kind of like this, kind of like a pitchfork, you know, a town with like pitchfork and flame type mentality, right? And that's how we follow suit. But we're never really honest about that. We're not really honest about that. Because if that's not really what we wanted, if that's not what was deep in our hearts, then we would do something different. And different looks like this. Different looks like coming on and talking about how you had this amazing, how you were able to bear witness to this amazing encounter that was much like a prodigal son type situation, where it's like seeing the Bible being lived out in like real life, right? Where you, I don't know, like went and, you know, you knew somebody with a situation and this kind of thing happened without really telling like who it is. But, you know, you were able to go and you reached out and you reached out to your circle, and your circle went to this person, and you guys kind of stood together and stood in the gap, and you labored in love, and you prayed, and you stood in the trenches with this person until they returned home like the prodigal son that they were. That's what that would look like. And so you would be able to tell the testimony of the ministry, the testimony of seeing how God worked, the testimony of, the testimony of Christ, right? Because that would be the reminder in this scenario of how through love that was shed, repentance followed, and God welcomed back with open arms. That's the testimony of Christ. That would be the testimony. But again, we're not willing to make that kind of sacrifice because we desire the easy road. And the easy road is shedding someone else's blood rather than making a true sacrifice like Jesus did. Let's say la here, right? So, we wonder why people are falling away in numbers. We wonder why people are falling away in numbers. And then we talk about like, man, you guys are out here doing crystals and horoscopes and all this kind of stuff. I mean, they're trying to find hope in anything because the life that we're living, can't find hope in that because it ain't no different than what we already have. It's toxic. Nobody want that mess. Nobody want that. You can dress up in whatever you dressing up and put makeup on it, but you can put lipstick on a pig and a pig is still a pig. Just it is what it is. They have less examples of what it means to have actual relationship with God. We got religion out here all day long. We got religion everywhere, every corners of the earth. In fact, there's growing numbers of these little hubs now where people are gathering together and they start out thinking, oh, we're going to do something different. And the truth of the matter is they're just forming new religious little groups like, nothing more than modern day cults where people are following each other to the ends of the earth like some form of godly loyalty, but it's not. Everybody is out here being deceived. Y'all just out here being deceived. You don't know what that is. You don't even know what you're doing. You don't even know what you're doing. We're out here fighting. It's unbelievable. We're out here fighting and standing up for a person's name. We're out here standing up and fighting for a person's ministry more than you realize. And leaving the relationship with Christ completely out of it. Completely out of it. There's no relationship. There's no relationship. Because a prominent relationship with Christ when it comes to loyalty, that means no matter what this looks like in our relationship, no matter what this looks like in our little circle, that means that when something has gone awry, I can come to you and I can tell you like, hey, you slipping. Hey, this ain't right. Hey, we're kind of like, doing something that, we need to kind of tighten the reins a little bit. And you'll have ears to hear, which means a heart to hear, a heart to listen, rather than taking offense because I'm coming in love. We can correct each other. That's what that would look like. But hey, what does love got to do with it, right? That's what we like to say. And I would say everything. it has absolutely everything to do with it. Because after all, we're doing things in the name of God, right? And isn't God love? I don't know, man. I tell you, I'm over it. I'm over it. And my heart aches. My heart aches. I mean, I literally was in tears this morning. And I was just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? This is craziness. This is craziness. I hate seeing the world watch those who claim to love and follow Christ constantly fight and air out our dirty laundry like angry parents who are like on the verge of a divorce and fighting in front of their children. It's like we all know the scenario where the children are always the victim and they end up in like the awful situations unbeknownst to the parents. Why? Because the parents are too consumed fighting with each other to like prove who's right and prove who's wrong. And no one is ever paying attention or giving much thought to the hurt and lost child. I don't know. You could take what you want from this. Maybe take nothing at all. Some people are going to be upset. But if you are, probably might want to go back to the beginning of the message and read it again. Nonetheless, ultimately, I really do pray that we as a body do better. That's all. I pray that we do. I pray that we do better. Because the world is watching everything that we do. Everything that we do. And we need to be better living examples of Christ. That's all.